I'm still shocked by Mad Men's surprise Star Trek reunion 3 years after Enterprise ended. When you think about Mad Men, your mind usually drifts towards smoky advertising offices, Don Draper's troubled brilliance, and the glitzy yet crumbling facade of 1960s American culture. What doesn't usually come to mind is Star Trek. And yet, in one of television's strangest and most delightful intersections, AMC's period drama unexpectedly doubled as a reunion spot for two major players from Star Trek. Enterprise, a surprise that still stuns me, even all these years later. The connection may not seem obvious at first. Enterprise ended in 2005, just as Mad Men was in development. The final season of the prequel Trek series wasn't exactly the triumphant send-off fans had hoped for, but it left behind a cast that was undeniably talented. Many of its actors went on to steady careers across television, but few could have predicted that 3 years after Enterprise's cancellation, fans would stumble across a mini-Trek reunion on a stylish show about Madison Avenue ad executives, Connor Trinneer and Michael Gladys. A hidden Trek bond. The reunion came courtesy of Connor Trinneer, best known to Trekkies as Charles Trip Tucker III, the warm, Southern chief engineer on Enterprise. Trinneer didn't appear in Mad Men's main run, but he turned up in the first season in a guest role as one of the potential clients Roger Sterling and Don Draper sought to impress. His screen time was brief, but for Trek fans still reeling from Enterprise's premature end, it was jarring to see Trip Tucker suddenly clad in a 1960s business suit without a warp engine in sight. What made the moment more special was the presence of Michael Gladys, who played Paul Kinsey, the beatnik-leaning copywriter in the early years of Mad Men. While Gladys isn't a Trek actor in the traditional sense, his deep affection for science fiction and eventual later appearance in Star Trek New Voyages, one of the high-profile fan productions, made his connection to Trinneer feel like a wink to genre fans. Seeing these two share a show felt like an accidental yet meaningful crossover between worlds that couldn't have been more different. A reunion that felt personal for Trek fans. What makes the moment linger in my mind isn't just the trivia of it all. It's the emotional timing. In 2005, when Enterprise ended, Trek fandom was at a low point. The series finale, These Are the Voyages, left many disappointed, and the future of Star Trek on television seemed uncertain. For longtime fans who had lived through the booming Next Generation era and the richness of Deep Space Nine and Voyager, the loss of Trek on TV stung. Then, almost immediately, Mad Men arrived in 2007 and redefined prestige television. Its characters wrestled with questions of identity, progress, and morality, ideas that Star Trek, in its own futuristic way, had always explored. To see Connor Trinneer, a face so closely tied to the dream of space exploration, suddenly appear in this grounded, cynical world of advertising was surreal. It was like watching Trip Tucker walk through a temporal anomaly and end up trapped in Don Draper's America. For fans, it was a reminder that Trek actors weren't vanishing with the franchise's TV hiatus. They were still out there, finding new creative ground, even in the least expected corners of television. Why it still stands out today. Plenty of actors from Trek have made their way into other acclaimed shows, but the Mad Men crossover feels particularly strange because of how tonally opposed the two series are. Star Trek Enterprise was about optimism, exploration, and the human spirit reaching outward. Mad Men, meanwhile, was about disillusionment, self-destruction, and the limits of the American dream. Yet, seeing Trinneer appear in Mad Men's meticulous recreation of the 1960s adds an unexpected layer. After all, Star Trek itself was born in that very decade. The juxtaposition is eerie. In one show, humanity strives toward the stars. In the other, it's trapped in smoke-filled rooms, struggling with consumerism and broken marriages. It's as if television itself staged an unintentional commentary on what the 1960s gave us. The hopeful optimism of Gene Roddenberry's vision and the darker realities Matthew Weiner wanted to unearth. The legacy of this overlooked TV crossover. While Trinneer's appearance on Mad Men wasn't a recurring role, it's still enough to qualify as one of the most unlikely Trek reunions. Fans love when franchises collide in official crossovers, but sometimes the more subtle intersections are just as powerful. Watching Mad Men's first season and suddenly realizing, wait, that's Trip Tucker from Enterprise, was a thrill I'll never forget. It also speaks to the resilience of Trek alumni. Even when the franchise went quiet between 2005 and 2017, its actors carried the torch in different ways. Whether through stage work, fan productions, or small but meaningful appearances in major shows, they reminded audiences that Trek's influence was still present in pop culture. Final thoughts. Nearly 2 decades later, I still get a jolt of nostalgia when I rewatch Mad Men and catch Connor Trinneer on screen. It's a blink and you'll miss it role, but it represents something bigger. The way Trek and its people have a habit of resurfacing in the most unexpected places. For fans who were mourning the end of